What up, y'all? I'm Naomi.
And I'm Andy. We're a real-life couple and a real-life couple of comedians. You know Naomi from Two Dope Queens in Broad City.
And Andy's written for everyone from Pete Holmes to Cedric the Entertainer.
Besides our exciting TV credits, we're also the hosts of the comedy podcast Couples Therapy, which features stand-up comedians who are close doing sets together about their relationship.
You'll hear from siblings who should not be roommates, married couples who hate each other's moms, and co-hosts who have become codependent.
Episodes feature everyone from SNL's Sashir Zameda and Nailed It's Nicole Byer to Daily Show correspondents Ronnie Chang and Roy Wood Jr.
Not to mention First Wives Club's Michelle Buteau and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend's Rachel Bloom.
And sometimes we even have guests come into the studio to talk about relationships, like when Danielle Brooks from Orange is the New Black came in and I tried to make her my friend.
How'd that work out?
Not great! I mean, tune in and find out.
The Couples Therapy Podcast is like if therapy was funny and you didn't have to pay for it. New episodes drop every Tuesday.
Download it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Welcome, my friends. Welcome to Enjoy Incredible Health with me, your host, Dr. David Vitko. I'm a chiropractic physician who's been helping your friends and family to feel better, relieve pain, and get healthy in Columbiana, Ohio for over 30 years. So if you know someone who needs help feeling better and getting truly healthier, tell them to call my office, 330-482-9550. That's 482-9550, and my wife, Nisi, will get them scheduled to sit down with me for a consultation. Together, we can figure out an answer to their health concern, and if I can't help them, I'll find someone who can. No pressure ever. We're here to serve you. That's what we're all about. So through the end of August, our consult for lowering cholesterol, triglycerides, blood pressure, and fixing that diabetes issue is just $50. That's for the consult. You come sit down with me for an hour. Let's set a plan. Let's figure out what'll work for you. And so that's a great price to find out more about all the great health you've been missing out on. Call Denise at 482-9550. So that's about it for my advertising for today. We really don't have time. We have lives to save here. And as such, I have a really amazing treat for you today. And it's one of my unwitting mentors, unwitting because, I've been learning from him for decades, and he never knew it. The guest I have for you today is one of the really special doctors who helped me figure out how to turn my health around so dramatically and put me on the path to converting my practice so I could help others also enjoy incredible health. He's one of the world's top experts on human health and nutrition. He's board-certified family physician, nutrition researcher, and get this, 6-time New York Times best-selling author and internationally recognized expert on nutrition and natural healing. He specializes in preventing health and reversing heart disease or reversing disease through natural nutritional methods. I'm not sure, Vike, we got him on the line yet? Okay, cool. So here we go, and I know you're all as thrilled as I am to have our guest, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, here with us today. Welcome, Dr. Fuhrman.
Good morning. Great to be here.
It's a little early out there for you, isn't it?
Yeah, but I get up early because I'm from the East Coast, so even though I'm in California, I'm on East Coast time. My sleeping habit, yeah.
So when you spend some time out there, do you adjust to West Coast time?
Not really. I still go to bed early and wake up early, even though I'm here on the West Coast.
Okay. That sounds like a good habit. I do the same myself. But I've been studying your work for really a couple of decades, and I've enjoyed it. And really, I had forgotten something. Just this morning, I went back through and I was reading through the interview that you did with Mark Huberman with the National Health Association, and really was an enlightening read because I guess I didn't realize that your roots came from the American natural hygiene, from natural hygiene in general. And so that's where you kind of got your start, but you've evolved from there, no doubt. And what exactly, what do you do? What do you do to help people?
Well, for 30 years I've been a physician using nutritional excellence as my therapeutic modality. It's been a tremendously rewarding career. I'm so grateful for the opportunities I've had to affect so many people. And I guess, when a person comes to you with rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, asthma, chronic headaches, advanced heart disease, diabetics faced with a foot amputation, people who want to avoid bypass surgery, you have the tools and the answers for them to enable them to make a full recovery. And so many people are led down a pathway of just such a wrong pathway. Like every day, I see somebody, for example, with a diagnosis of Lyme disease, who never even had Lyme disease, just because they had a little bit of post-viral inflammation, a couple of bands on a Western blot, and some joint pain. They're falsely diagnosed with Lyme disease, given antibiotics for months, and all it would take was a week or two of some, therapeutic massage and some physical, and a good diet, and there's so many people suffering needlessly, is my point. And so it's been tremendously rewarding. What I do all the time is I see patients. I have people that come to my retreat who are overweight food addicts with serious medical conditions that stay here for 2 to 3 months under my care to make, radical and miraculous recoveries from serious illnesses, including, diabetes and heart disease goes away, and make recoveries from rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis. It's really exciting. And I motivate people. I write books and I lecture and I try to solve people's obstacles, impediments to healing, because they have such negative social and local environments that just, give them the impression that drugs are their answer to everything that ails them, and just sets them on a merry-go-round of spiraling downhill to more severe disease when they get in this, one drug, then they just get sicker and lead to another drug, and they get sicker on 5 medications. It's just barbaric. What I'm saying? It's barbaric.
It's a ridiculous way to try to get people healthy, is it not? I always say traditional medicine is great for pulling your foot out of an early grave, but it's not going to make you healthy. To get healthy, you have to go to the root cause of the problem, and that's exactly what you're speaking of. And I think that you, with the traditional medical training, it's interesting, that you kind of you straddle that line. Basically, you probably still do use some medical treatment in a traditional sense, and you couple it with nutrition. Is that correct?
Well, it's very helpful that I can prescribe so that I can wean people down off medications. Occasionally I have people come to me, like the lady came in yesterday, or I've had people come approach with a blood pressure over 200 over 120, and I have to give her some medications temporarily till the diet takes a few days to take effect. But then by the end of that first week, I'd wean them off the medications. But usually people are coming to me on multiple medications, and I have to reduce the dosages gradually of the medications as they're getting healthier. So it's helpful that I can do so. But I'm mostly writing prescriptions to reduce the dose. I'm not usually starting people on something new too often.
Sure. Yeah. And so as a chiropractor, it's a little more difficult for me, but I found most family doctors are more than willing to take people off medications if they can demonstrate that they've changed their habits and they've improved their health to the point to where, they can move down that path. And especially if the doctor feels confident that they're going to stick with it more or less. And I think the coaching end of it and working with patients, I do a weekly thing. You have people come and stay. That's a great asset, no doubt about it. But what kind of cases do you see? Now, you mentioned rheumatoid, you mentioned Lyme disease. So the inflammatory diseases, certainly, and a lot of diseases fall into that category, actually. But what kind of, I'm always fascinated to hear what other doctors have seen as far as recoveries go. And what are the most exciting cases you've seen? Because I know you get a thrill out of this too.
Absolutely. I could just talk about 1,000 cases. But, for example, I had a high school student, had to miss a year of school due to chronic headaches. She was hospitalized in Boston Children's, getting IV experimental drugs to stop her chronic daily headaches. I see these people all the time. They're just on the chronicity of taking drugs. It just gets people to develop chronic headaches. And we wean them off the medications, put them on a high-nutrient diet with some juicing usually to help speed the penetration of phytochemicals and antioxidants in their tissues and remove the toxicity. And, of course, they're back to school again without headaches and off the merry-go-round of taking toxic substances, it's just never ceases to amaze me how people think, putting poisons in their body would be a solution, especially for a child. You keep them on these toxins for the rest of their life. It did work, which it doesn't work anyway. They're just temporary solutions, and the people fall back to their headaches again. But it's just crazy, isn't it? So I see people with lupus, for example. I have a girl on the national renal transplant that's waiting for a new kidney, with the lupus destroyed her kidney with a creatinine of 4.2, and she made a complete recovery. Her kidney function came back to normal, and her creatinine was back to 0.8. Whether it's autoimmune hepatitis or lupus, and asthmatics, watching asthmatics who are even adults who are using inhalers in the middle, having to wake in the middle of the night to be able to breathe, and can't even take an exercise class, and can't even sleep through the night without puffing and taking steroids. Having these people make complete long-term recoveries and be able to breathe normally again. And then, bread and butter routine thing is people with diabetes, having a person faced with a foot amputation, with chronic infections, who was, crying in their doctor's office, wanting to save their foot. The person, obviously gets well and loses 80 pounds and gets their circulation back and doesn't need an amputation. The diabetes is gone. And people, just a guy came to me with, having chest pains, slated for having an urgent angioplasty for acute cardiac syndrome. I told him he had to go to the hospital. I didn't even want to take the risk, but he refused to go to the hospital. He said, just let me die then. I'm not going to the hospital and having stent put in. But in any case, he lost 80 pounds. He's now down. His chest pains went away. He's walking up hills now and getting back in good shape again, getting his life back. It's just routinely seeing these cases of advanced heart disease resolve is really exciting too. So that's simple bread and butter stuff you see all the time. But I think the autoimmune diseases, the people with psoriatic arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis and Sjogren's syndromes and autoimmune hepatitis and multiple sclerosis, relapsing and remitting multiple sclerosis getting resolved in these men, so they can get off the medications and get well again. All these things are very exciting to know that most of what people suffer from, the body has the ability to repair itself and get back to normal, suppress genetic alterations that could lead to disease. And so even with regard to cancer and cancer protection, these genetic tendencies and genetic defects that increase risk of cancer are only allowed to be expressed when you're eating a poor diet. Once you eat a diet with a high level of green vegetables and mushrooms and onions and berries and seeds, once you start eating the full portfolio of anti-cancer substances, these genetic defects are almost meaningless. In other words, the body is not designed to get cancer or get heart disease. Those are the results of nutritional folly.
Right, things that we've been doing for generations and habits that we've developed. I often talk to patients who say, well, I have this, my family has high cholesterol, or my family has heart disease, my family has Alzheimer's. And I always make a point to tell them, look, you have these genetic tendencies. It doesn't mean you have to develop it. And they only happen because we feed the body wrong. But I love the fact that you are getting across the idea that something I preach every week here, and I say preach because it is kind of preaching, but you're trying to change people's view on things, that these are not diseases that that are set in stone that you are going to get. You have a huge influence on them, and even if you have the beginnings of them, you have the potential to fix them. And time is a factor, no doubt, but your dedication to a good diet, to a healthy diet, and taking out the bad things is critical. And, my patients that I see learn that lesson sometimes the hard way because they think, well, I can just take part of this. And you do see improvement, no doubt, right, with some improvement in your diet. But it's when you really get on the straight and narrow, that's when you see dramatic change.
Right, and also the processed foods and people are eating are so addictive, and they're designed to be addictive. And sometimes people dabble in it. They think they're going to improve their diet, and they're sucked back in to eating badly by the addictive natures of these processed foods, sweets, whatever it is they're eating. But, white flour products are so carcinogenic. I'm saying that, I'm eating bread and pasta and bagels and pizza and all the stuff people eat that just destroys their health. And they can't, it's like you can't just eat a small amount of that stuff. You start eating it, you can't stop practically.
Right.
And, but in any case, what I'm saying is that when people think they're going to do it 80 or 90%, too often they fail because they continue to dabble in their sweets and and the illicit love affair they have with these unhealthy foods, and it inevitably sucks them back into eating more of those foods, and they gain the weight back again. Especially when you're an addict, especially when people are seriously ill, and overweight. Most Americans are significantly overweight and eating poorly. It's only about 2.5% of Americans that have a normal weight and are eating healthfully.
That's incredible.
2.5%. That's almost nobody. 2 out of 100 are eating healthfully and exercising and keeping their normal weight. The other people are either overweight or they're thinner because they're sick and they're smoking cigarettes or they're sickly. But so in any case, what I'm saying right now is that people need sometimes to learn a lot of information, to get a lot of hand-holding, a lot of help, a lot of knowledge to be able to remove the obstacles that are preventing them from following a healthy diet. And I guess my message is that eating healthfully tastes better. Your taste buds improve. You learn the recipes. You feel good about what you're eating, and you enjoy it immensely. And the idea that a person thinks that they're going to get more pleasure out of eating unhealthfully is just they become a victim of the addictive nature of foods that suck them in. It's like people give rationalizations why it's okay to continue to smoke or snort cocaine or something. All of these addicts always rationalize why they can't change and why it's better for them to just be an addict. But it's not visualized or generally understood that processed foods that are killing people do the same thing to people. They think, I'd rather enjoy my life more, and I don't care if I eat like that. I'd rather be dead. They don't understand that they're not getting more enjoyment; they're getting less enjoyment, and how these foods affect their brain, destroy their intelligence, reduce their creativity and productivity, shorten their lifespan tremendously, cause an undue amount of needless tragedy, and make them think they have no choice, that they're sucked into only eating that way on their destructive habits can't be stopped. But they can be stopped, and they can learn to enjoy eating healthily. It just takes some time and some skills and good leadership to achieve that.
Right. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about people who, once they come up against that idea that, they have to get their foot amputated. Well, it seems like it takes a crisis, that people have to reach a crisis point in their health before they're willing to make the change often. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that I don't think most people understand the power of good nutrition, the real healing power that it has. And I love the fact that you speak to that. And I learned that in your book, Eat to Live, the first place one of the first places I saw it. And it's a powerful message. And I think if we could get that to resonate more with people, we could get more people to change their diet before they reach that crisis point.
Absolutely. And if they knew how really almost futile and dangerous the drugs were, many more millions of people would make change in their life. And just think about the number one drugs prescribed, high blood pressure medications, linked to breast cancer. In scientific studies after 10 years of use, we're talking about like simple things like calcium channel blockers in broad use, pushing the diastolic down. When you lower the systolic blood pressure, you sacrifice your diastolic blood pressure in the process, which can get too low to get your systolic favorable. And you don't get enough oxygenation back to your heart during diastole when the blood vessels contract inward to push the blood back from your extremities back to your lungs and heart again. And then you develop ischemia leading to irregular heartbeat. And you have an atrial fibrillation from the blood pressure medications. The doctors have to put you on blood thinners. And you get reflux and irritation and digestion from the blood thinners, and they're putting you on a proton pump inhibitor. Then you're on a proton pump inhibitor, causes heart attacks. And they're putting you on and increases risk of osteoporosis. And then you get a drug for osteoporosis, and that increases risk of atrial fibrillation. It's just a whole vicious cycle of one drug causing another ailment that they have to treat with another drug. And all they really had to do was change their diet and eat healthfully, and they wouldn't have had a problem to begin with.
See, most people wouldn't believe that unless they experienced it. And that's what I get with patients who do experience it, and you get this inner feeling of true wellness. I mean, that you of well-being that you don't experience until you've been down this path a little ways. But you're right; it is a vicious circle, and people don't realize they can get out of that cycle. But I think for a lot of people, that's a painful thing. The headaches, the grumbling stomach, the tiredness, and a lot of things that people experience when they're correcting their diet for a short time before things take hold. Do you see that with your patients?
Yes, definitely. I mean, obviously, I run these programs. People come into my retreat here and stay for months, but I actually run week getaways too for Whole Foods Market, and for the public too, where people come and they send me their sickest people and the most overweight people, and of course they know that when they switch their diet, they're going to detox. In other words, they're going to feel like stopping cigarettes and stopping cocaine and stopping bad food. You feel weak and a little mild headachy and shaky, a little irritable for a few days, but by the fourth day, I mean, everybody's feeling pretty much okay. It's rare that after 4 days the person isn't feeling better. So you could say it's a small price to pay, but obviously I always say, feeling worse is getting better and feeling better is getting worse. Anything you take that's going to make you instantaneously feel better can't be good for you. It's like taking a drug for a headache whose active ingredients are barbiturates and caffeine and narcotics. It's not getting you healthier because you're feeling better. It's pushing the poisons back in your body, so your body can't get rid of them. So it's the process via which toxins are removed from the body by the body's own channels of elimination sometimes can cause discomfort, and being a little uncomfortable obviously is needed on the road to wellness.
Right, and most people are not willing to do that on their own. That's why, it's a rare individual that can pick up a book and read it and do it and put it into action. So understanding it, this was my challenge for years. I suffered poor health for many years. I think you pretty much were put on the path to good whole health and wellness early on. Were you not? Your dad was a follower of Herbert Shelton, am I right?
That's correct. My father was kind of sickly and overweight, and he changed his own diet. So we started eating healthfully when he changed the whole family's diet to be more healthfully as he did. And I was a young teenager then. So yes, I started reading Shelton's books when I was probably 10 years old, 12 years old, and all his newsletters and things. So at least I understood why we're changing our diet as a family, understand what my father was doing. You know what I mean? So I got into this stuff very young.
Right. You understood he wasn't just trying to torture the family or anything. There actually was a purpose behind it. I mean, when you look at the natural hygienists, some of their ideas were they seemed way out there for the time, certainly. Well, a lot of it's coming back now in the science, and they're going, well, hey, there's valid points to this. And it wasn't all based in validity, but there are some good, valid things. And the Whole Foods is definitely something that it can carry on forever because it's never going to change.
You're right. So what you're saying, which is really kind of interesting, is that can you imagine doing this 40, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and when I was a kid in elementary school and bringing my healthy lunches to high school, and can you imagine how unusual it was to be eating healthy or to be eating vegan foods or plant-based whole foods back then compared to now? I mean, now we have restaurants and healthy restaurants and, go into Whole Foods Market and get a salad bar and everybody's eating healthfully and so much on, noise and people talking about reversing disease through nutrition and a whole, 10,000 members of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, a whole bunch of doctor groups that are living healthfully, inviting people to speak at medical conferences and stuff. Now it's like I've been doing this for so many years where it seemed like you were nuts. People thought you were nuts. And you said, no, we're not nuts. We're the only people saying everybody else is nuts. But you're right. It's becoming more mainstream, of course, because it's correct.
Right.
Because it's right. Because people are killing themselves with eating garbage.
And I'm struck by the fact there are different factions in this whole thing. There are the people who are strictly animal welfare people. There are people who are vegans who are some of the most unhealthy people I've ever met in my life because they tend to lean toward the bagels and breads and pastas and things too heavily. And those things, as you said before, do not create health. Hey, Doc, can you hang around for the second half of the show?
Sure.
Okay, it'll be just about 5 minutes. We'll be back with you. Thanks so much, man. It's enlightening, and it's a thrill of my life. We'll be back shortly.
Sure.
This is Dr. Dave, and you're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health. Mike can cut me off a little quick there, but but we're good. And we'll see you here in just a few minutes, and we'll finish up with Dr. Fuhrman.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Okay, we're back, and we are with Dr. Joel Fuhrman. It gives me goosebumps to say that, and the guy is tremendous. And I'm going to read just a quick little thing off of his website. So in Dr. Fuhrman's hundreds of radio and television appearances, including Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Live with Kelly, Good Morning America, he's educated millions of people on the long-range benefits of healthful eating. And he's had 4 hugely successful PBS specials, and on those, they raised over $35 million for public television. Just incredible. And folks, if you haven't seen that show on public television, they re-air it from time to time, and it's worth watching. And Dr. Fuhrman's one of my favorites. Dr. Fuhrman, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. So we'll go through the second part here. So, there's a few things that I've kind of jotted down that I'm just kind of curious. Like, I've had Dr. David Katz on here a couple times. So I imagine you know Dr. Katz. Am I right?
Sure.
And David's a great interview, and he is very passionate about helping people, as you are. And a lot of the guys that have discovered and stuck with this stuff for years and seen patients' health blossom and improve through good diet. And and Dr. Katz seemed to start eating very healthfully at a very young age, and it sounds like you did as well. Were there any hiccups in your life where you kind of fell away from a better diet, or have you always been pretty strict on it?
Yeah, no, I never fell away from it. It's just that I got hurt. With my ice skating career, I couldn't walk for about a year with a bad athletic injury. So when I was like 19 or 20 years old, I did a long fast on water that didn't really, I fasted too long, and it had an effect to make me too weak for such a long period of time. So it kind of like derailed a lot of my. So other than that, there were no hiccups. Just maybe I did too much fasting because I thought it would help me walk again when I was young. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Do you see any use for fasting in present day in your work?
I do, I do. But I think I don't think that many people should do these really long fasts. I think it's too stressful to the body to fast that long. It's better to do shorter fasts that you incorporate more frequently.
Sure.
But I do, like, for example, I'm getting a person's nutrients up. I'm getting their toxins out. I'm getting rid of their asthma, slowly decreasing their medications over a 6-month period. I have them at the point where they're now so much better and breathing better, and I want to stop the last bit of medications. Maybe I'll put them on a fast as I stop the medications just to reduce the inflammatory potential so there's not going to be a rebound of having an asthma attack come back again. Or maybe, like I just recently had a person with rheumatoid arthritis on Enbrel and other serious medications, and I stopped her medications after about 6 months of treating her, weaning her down. She was on methotrexate and Enbrel and injectables and things. And then I stopped her medications. I had her fast for just 4 days, so I would keep, prevent the possibility of flaring back up again. And I fed her for a few days and actually fasted her for 3 more, just because she was getting so much skin reaction to the medications coming out of her system and getting so much flare up on her skin. And then she went home. Like 3 weeks later, she started to get a little pain in her shoulder. But her sed rate looked still pretty good. And so, but in any case, I combined the dietary excellence with a little bit of judicious use of fasting to establish, in her case, a complete cure. Now she runs a low sed rate, her rheumatoid arthritis is gone, and she's on the way to living the rest of her life with no disease that requires medications that cause cancer. These medications are powerfully cancer-causing drugs, and using the combination between good nutrition, knowing how to deal with these patients, and the judicious use of fasting better enables me to secure a remission. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I have a lot of patients ask me about, well, doc, should I fast? And I have fasted many times myself, usually 4 to 5 days, short fast, which, kind of funny. Most people would think, well, that's a long fast. Many times people have to fast, 12 hours before they get blood work, and they're frantic because they haven't eaten in 12 hours. But, and I've done as long as 21 days a couple of times. But fasting is powerful, but it should command respect, because it is a catabolic process. It is a breakdown process in the body. And I saw that. I've followed my blood work many times when I would fast, and my cholesterol actually went up during fasts, and, the body's dumping a lot of material. You realize all that. But it's, it should be respected. And I think for the average person, short fasts are probably a good little thing to do, a day or two here or there. But To get the changes that you're talking about, medical changes, those should be done under supervision if you're going to use it. But I'm struck by the power of whole foods and healthy foods, and I know you don't like the term, but plant-based. But good whole fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, they have the power to restore health, right? I mean, that's really where the healing comes from in the body.
Right. It's the combination of eating the right foods and not eating the wrong foods.
There you go.
and
it's a funny thing.
Over time, the body does what it needs to do when you supply it with an optimal environment for healing.
Yeah.
Right back to we're going back in time to that the body is this miraculous self-healing machine, and it has already the mechanisms built inside of it to repair itself. And disease most often is not just luck. It's not just primarily genetic. It's not from aging. It's from something that's been done wrong or something we've been exposed to that we can. And you know what? Even when you're exposed to chemicals and lead and other potentially and arsenic and other potentially chemotherapeutic contributors, when you give the body the full portfolio of excellent foods it needs, with making sure it's not deficient in anything, then the body starts to be able to better deal with waste products, even if they're from the external environment, even if they're pollution derived or toxicity derived. The body still can repair and remove those toxins if given the right nutritional, you could say, full nutritional portfolio it needs to maximize its health.
I agree with that 100%, and nothing makes me more irate than when I read these articles about, so many thousands of people die every year because of air pollution. And I keep thinking, I can't help but wonder why. I wonder how many of those people pollute their bodies with chips and cakes and sodas and alcohol and things like that, and set themselves up for that issue where air pollution becomes a major effector. So I think we have so much within our control, and I have patients ask me all the time, and they probably do you too, on organic versus organic versus non-organic foods, and should they strive for organic? What about pesticides? What kind of? Yeah, I'm sure you get those questions all the time.
I do, and certainly I think what you eat and the quality of the foods you're eating is more important per se, whether everything's organic or not. But on the other hand, in recent years, I've tried to move, almost my diet more and more organic as we're having more chemical contamination of our environment, more soil, whatever it is. We're seeing as studies go on, like Consumer Reports, of course, did a recent study a few years back that showed the brown rice being contaminated with arsenic.
Right.
And then they've had another study that came out with oatmeal being contaminated with glyphosate, and then with so in other words, what I'm saying right now, in the modern world, there's more potential for contamination than ever before, and we are, more and more being concerned about supporting the organic movement, clean, regenerative agriculture that's not going to destroy soils and destroy our environment. So, and then even the people, even supporting organic food, if you can afford it, supports the workers who had to work with those chemicals that could have hurt their disease, hurt their chance of getting sick.
Right.
So certainly I'm become more and more a supporter of the organic movement as time went on, as it seems as more chemical, contamination has been spreading in our world, in the modern world,
Right. But for the average person, if who eats the standard American diet, the SAD diet, as they call it, you're still better to move to a fruit, vegetable-based diet, even if you can't get organic or if you can't afford organic. It's still going to benefit you tremendously health-wise,
absolutely,
despite the fact it's not organic. And
yes, agreeing with, of course, all those points, definitely.
Yeah. So tell me about your center in California. Your health center. Where is it, and what's a typical day for a patient there?
Well, it's north of San Diego. It's in San Diego County, but not in San Diego City. It's just so gorgeous here. We look out over this beautiful park and mountains, and you can see out to the ocean. But it's just gorgeous. And then so people really come here for a long period of time because when you come in for a cocaine addiction, you don't just stay there for a week. You have to stay there for months.
Right. Because
it takes time for your body no longer to crave cocaine. And so you don't want to. And so it takes time for people to retrain their taste preferences and learn the recipes and get the counseling. So we have psychological counseling. We have group food addiction therapy, cooking classes, exercise classes, yoga, my lectures. Each person come here is taken under my wing. We have a nurse here and myself, my own, and medical care by myself to, really devise the best program for them. Some of them utilize, of course, we're growing a lot of our own foods. I have 60 exotic fruit trees. I've got a vegetable gardens with incredible, the purest, I call it super soil. Some people call it like Batman soil because I have like bat guano and earthworm castings and crushed mineral rock in there. And so your Batman soil, it's not Batman soil, it's bat guano in there. But in other words, we're not using commercial fertilizers. We're not using, animal, manure from animal farms that could have been contaminated with antibiotics and things. So we make just, and I have great chefs that people's like, they're saying, wow, this is incredibly delicious stuff, and they learn how to, so when they go home, they can replicate this at home.
Yeah.
So they might, yesterday they went to the beach, for a hike on the beach, but mostly most of the activities are on the premises here. You know what I mean? And I have a sand volleyball court, I have a disc golf course, I've got a beautiful saltwater pool, I've got ping pong, and I've got all kinds of, so people can just stay here, have a great time. And I guess you could come here if you wanted to, just to enjoy the food and have fun. But most people that are here, I'd say most everybody that's here is here because they're here for a medical reason.
Right.
They're guests, but they're really here because they have some disease they want to recover from. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're usually overweight. They usually have some illnesses they're recovering from, and they have me to supervise the reduction and removal of their medications while they're here. You know what I mean? So it's really it's so rewarding to be able to care for people, because you can imagine in my 30 years of a career having somebody call me from the ICU and say to me, "Oh, Dr. Fuhrman, I just had a heart attack. I knew when I came to the office, you told me I was at high risk, and I didn't listen to you. I should have listened to you and changed then. But now, and I'm thinking to myself, oh God, why could this person? I told them they were at high risk. Why didn't they do? Why did they continue to eat that way? Why didn't they? How frustrating it could be when a person would hurt themselves and not listen.
Right.
Because I know some people are just they know they should do it. They know they should lose weight. They know that they got to get healthy, and they know they're not healthy, but they just can't seem to be able to do it on their own. And when they come here, then you can, with 100% certainty they're going to be able to drop their weight, get healthy, and reverse their diseases. And it's just thrilling to watch, to be able to save a life,
right,
and change the trajectory of the person's health. And I don't care whether I helped 5 people or 500 people. It's still a thrill with every single one.
I'm amazed at your caring heart, because from what you've done and all your books and everything. You probably don't have to do this, but you obviously care deeply about people. And to make that kind of change in people's lives is just so impressive, and it's got to be so rewarding to see people turn it around. And you're right, even I see in the office when you work with people and they go back out into the world and they're exposed to all those things that sucked them in to begin with, that have got them in that bad health. And it's really a challenge, and I hear this from people, it is such a challenge to change. When you're living out, and your friends want to go to lunch, or, you have parties and things like that. So that is such a great idea. How long has that center been there?
Well, it's been here for almost a year now. But of course, in my earlier stages of my career, I used to have a house that I used to rent near my house in New Jersey, and I used to always have people come and stay for periods of time in my past too. But this, of course, is on a completely different scale, because it's just such a beautiful environment here, and I have such professionals, a great professional team out here joining me. So it's just in a completely different level of commitment that people and all the right pieces of the puzzle in place. The chefs, the psychologists, the exercise people, the trainers, so it's just a much. It's really what I've kind of had a dream of doing this type of thing for years, and finally put it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dr. Shelton would have been envious. I know he had a fasting center, but those guys in the old days, they probably envisioned that kind of thing, but a lot of them couldn't do it. And to use the science along with it is what impresses me too, because you've got the best of both worlds. And if that doesn't motivate people to change, and your experiences with people who have gone too far and pushed their health too far and paid a price for it, that's got to help motivate people too, I would think.
I agree. I think if people, I can't imagine if people get this information in a really robust and complete form that they're not going to want to change. it's funny because let's say I run these vacation getaways where I'm teaching and lecturing for maybe 5 days in a row, and maybe the wife's into it and the husband doesn't really want to do it, but he'll go along for the golf. He'll come along because it's a nice hotel on the beach or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he sits through some of my lectures. Wasn't planning on sitting through them or doing anything, and or even eating with our meals, but he does sit through it, and it's so motivating, so uplifting, so convincing, and just so foolish to let your body deteriorate and become demented and damaged. That this is an unprecedented opportunity and a blessing that people can control their health destiny and not get sick and live longer with their full mental faculties intact and live to be 100 years old and not have to worry about the fear of having a heart attack or get cancer. It's just almost insane to eat and live like most Americans do and not to make these changes when you've learned about this.
Right.
So if I can get enough people exposed to this in depth, and as you know, I've been working on that with my books and my television shows, that people just, when they have enough information, we can motivate more people to make the change. And that's what I'm always saying, that once you realize what the drugs really don't save your life, taking the blood pressure medications, the statins, the diabetic medications, don't really do that much. And taking the mammograms don't really reduce breast cancer much. And it's really, you can't just expect medical care to take care of to resolve and give you a life. It's not riddled with tragedy and suffering unless you eat health, unless you change your life, and you're responsible, and you've got to make the changes. The doctor's not responsible for your health. The doctors can't make you healthy.
That's coming from a medical doctor. And, hey, if you can hang on 1 second, we'll finish up. Thank you so much. We got a break here. And this is Dr. David Vitko. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health. We'll be back in just 1 minute to finish up with Dr. Fuhrman.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Okay, we're back, and I believe Dr. Fuhrman is still with us. And, Doc, thanks for sticking with us through the break. I appreciate that. I wonder if you want to offer folks here who maybe can't, make the trip out to your health center where they could get more information and learn. I know you have some online options that people can use. Hello? Okay, maybe we lost them. All right.
No, I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry about that. So do you have a web address maybe where people can get some more information?
Sure, my website's drfuhrman.com. That's drfuhrman.com. And, of course, I have information about my books, and people can ask me questions and get recipes and get more information about my retreat if they're interested, too.
Well, that's easy enough. And so my favorite two books of yours are Eat to Live, which I believe is your earliest or one of your earliest, and The End of Dieting. My two favorites, the ones that I recommend to patients all the time, and I recommend everybody get a copy of those books. I refer to them from time to time to refresh my memory. I've probably read them each 3 or 4 times at least, and so I highly recommend that. You have any parting advice for folks, things that they can do?
Well, I just want people to leave with the idea and knowledge that they don't have to be sick and they don't have to suffer. They don't have to be, and this power of nutritional excellence works across the board to enable people to have so much of a better quality and a happier life, including the emotional aspect and feeling good about themselves, of mental clarity and positive emotional outlook, and having a better quality of life that then meets the needs of our environment, our world, and of course, being around to be there for their family, their children, and not have to make their children take care of them as they get older. And so it's important for you to be in great health, even to be active and enjoy your own life, but also not to ruin the health of your family, having to care for so many sick people and the burden you place on others when you don't take care of your own health.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much, Dr. Fuhrman. Dr. Joel Fuhrman, folks. I encourage you to go to his website, drfuhrman.com, correct? And thanks so much, Doc, for being here. I appreciate your time, and I'd love to have you back someday. I hope you'll come back.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Doc. Take care. So, listen, folks, I tell you this every Sunday, but here's a world-class physician a guy who actually, teaches this day in and day out and helps people reach higher levels. I do the same thing in my office at a different level. Same basic concept. I've learned from him. I've learned from many other doctors. You don't have to be sick, folks. Keep coming back here every Sunday to listen to Enjoy Incredible Health. Check out my podcasts at drvitkohealth.com, and you can listen to those anytime for free. Thanks so much for being here. We'll talk to you next week.